Hey y'all, it's Tyra Banks and I am back with another video on purposeful consulting because y'all know I'm working on my presentations for the purposeful consulting training that I'm holding. And I was looking back at some of the information that I had from the first time I taught it. Shout out to Dr. Worry Waits, who had me teach it some years ago. And I'm so excited to see people who are still benefiting from that training session. And I was looking back at some of the things and comparing some of the lessons that I've had over the years. And there are 5 main things that I learned as a consultant. 5 main things that have helped to make me successful. I've been able to transition in and out of positions as a consultant. So sometimes working full-time for myself, sometimes leveraging my consulting to become a full-time employee or staff member, and leveraging those experiences to speak and travel. And so there's like a richness that comes from reflection. And so I want to share a couple things with you guys that I've been reflecting on. 5 key things that I learned being a consultant. Now, for one second, I do want to tell y'all, I've been in business for over a decade. So I've seen all kinds of hills and valleys. I've had the opportunity to do some really cool stuff, and I banged my head on the wall about some really depressing moments. And so when I share this stuff, I'm sharing it from my real house, not some rented mansion, not trying to sell you a pipe dream. Consulting is serious work, but it's some of the most rewarding work that I ever did. And I'm super excited to be teaching this course again. And so when I didn't come into consulting on somebody else's coattails. So I didn't have a mentor or network to walk me into stuff. And at the time that I started consulting, it was really out of necessity. It was out of people are recognizing that I have certain skill sets, but this is a hard time in the world to find a day job. And so I don't encourage anybody to start just cold turkey like I did. I just went to the Louisiana Small Business Development Center, built a business, and was out there just winging it, right? So I don't encourage anybody to start that way. There are great books. One of them that I love called Flawless Consulting that you can check out. That'll really, really help you to lay a foundation when you get started. Outside of that, there are 5 keys that really helped me. And as I began to unlock them, my business would go up to another level and another level and another level. Number 1 is study. Really study your craft. See, as a consultant, there are really 2 main sets of skills you need. One is the actual technical skill of what it is that you're teaching or doing or working on. So if you're an IT consultant, you really need to understand information technology. You really need to understand innovation, cutting edge strategy, security. You really need to understand your craft. The second thing that you need is consulting skills. And yes, consulting skills are a thing, right? There's a way that you usher your client into committing, having discovery sessions with them, dialoguing with them. There's a real methodology to being a consultant, right? You become like a facilitator. You're like the water that pushes on the rock, that helps the rock to move along, but you're not actually force. You're not pushing the rock. You're advising, encouraging, sharing with the rock, analyzing things with the rock, right? But you're the water that pushes against the rock. You're not forcing the rock in any direction. So consulting skills are a real thing. I want you to study both. Always be up on your craft, but stay humble. Be willing to listen to innovation and new things that are on the horizon, but also be willing to say, I don't know. If a client comes up with something, you say, you know what? I've not experienced that, or I don't know, or let me go look into that. People have a genuine respect for folks that are willing to say, I don't know, or I'm wrong. It also proves to your client that you love them more than you love yourself, right? Your ego is not running the show, that you're really there committed to their process, and that you're not just there for your own vainglory. And so be willing to be humble, even as you rise in expertise. The second thing that I learned was to seek out mentors. It's not as awkward as it might sound. I used to think, especially when I started to ask people to mentor me, I felt like, well, I'm old, and how is this going to look? Or I'm already in business. Will they basically be like, look, girl, really, But as I got over myself and I recognized I really need some help, and I'm passionate about this, so I want to be successful at it, I started to reach out to folks, and guess what? They mentored me. People still till this day, they still mentor me. They're still there for me. And so it's not as awkward as it thinks, as you might think. No matter how old you are, it's okay to reach out to somebody who's doing well in a field that you're interested in and say, hey, here's where I am. I'd love your help. Here's what I'm also willing to give, right? So first of all, I would love if we would just break this culture of not paying people their consultation fee. I don't care if you gotta sell some stuff on eBay or bring your old jacket and dresses that you can't fit anymore to a consignment shop. But pay people their consultation fees. Stop asking people, can you go pick their brain for free? They've paid for their degrees. They paid for all the conferences and travel. They invested in themselves to be able to give that knowledge to you. Allow them to offer you free help. But don't ask for free help if you can help it. That's funny. Don't ask for free help if you can help it. But when you seek out a mentor, be willing to provide some value. I would offer to help out with things. Because a lot of times, people who are high level, they may be also presenting at conferences, or they may have the opportunity to do workshops where having an extra set of hands would be really good, or having a note taker that day would be good. And so if there are any ways that you can help out, it could be, I have a skill set of creating flyers or something like that. You tell them, hey, you know what? I wouldn't mind helping you out on design work or anything that you might need. People are so appreciative of the value that you bring to the table, not just the need that you bring to the table. And so be willing to offer something. Money, definitely a great option for you, but also help and offer some value. Mentors are game changers. I probably still would be trying to figure out how to invoice. Or I would have quit by now if I hadn't had a mentor to sit down with me and walk me through. Here is how I invoice. Here are my systems. Here's how I offer discounts. Here's what I do with bad debt, people who haven't paid, right? And so don't limit yourself by limiting the exposure that you have to outside influencers or outside mentors who can really sit down with you and walk with you step by step. And don't be afraid to join coaching programs that help out with that. It's another thing that I did, that I joined other people's programs and I paid fees for stuff, right? Invest in yourself, write it off on your taxes. That also brings me to number 3, create a system for invoicing. Now, I keep track of a lot of my stuff in my calendar, so that really helps me out. I also use a project management tool called Asana, where I assign tasks to myself. So I take a contract, I break it down into parts, and I assign myself roles. I assign myself certain tasks. You can do this even with your day job. And so that will help you stay on task. It'll also help you be accountable to what you owe to your client, so that your client isn't looking at you like, what am I paying for? And when it comes time for invoicing, you're able to recount to them the value that you brought to their organization as you bill them, because billing is super important. And let me tell you why. You're going to want to level up at some point. You're going to want to buy additional equipment. Maybe it's your own presentation equipment, recording equipment to record your presentations and leverage that content that you create. And guess what? If you have not been invoicing, you will not have the money or the leverage in terms of business credit in order to do that. And so don't delay yourself. Send those invoices and don't feel bad. And if you need somebody to work with you on your money mindset, if you realize that you struggle to invoice because you don't feel you deserve it, there are coaches out there for that. If you struggle to invoice because you don't feel like this was hard enough, I used to have this problem where I would try to over deliver because what I created didn't take me very long, or it didn't take me a whole lot of effort to create. Guess what? You're operating in your gift. It may not take a lot of effort. Probably won't, because it's your gift, right? And so get off your own case. You invested in the learning. You nurtured that gift. You absolutely deserve to get paid. The Bible says your gift will make room for who? You. And so don't limit yourself by not charging. You got to charge. I bump my head against that wall over and over and over again for all of us. You don't need to. Create a system so that you can keep track of the value that you provide and then invoice at a good time, right? So another issue I used to have, I might do the work and not invoice for the work till over a month. Now I'm on somebody's back burner. So invoice in a timely fashion. Fourth thing that I learned was to look the part, right? And I really credit this to some of my female mentors who, even if they were wearing Gucci shoes with a Walmart suit, that they looked the part, right? You want to walk in as professional as you can be. I always say the consultant should be a step up. Now, in my case, my style is more I would say, more mature, right? So that's just my style of dress. So it needs to be authentic to you, but you need to be very neat. You need to look the part. Don't walk into the meetings with the papers flying out of your briefcase, right? So this is not necessarily just about your clothing choice, although I do believe that you should step in there crisp, right? Doesn't have to be a suit, doesn't have to be a tie if that's not you, but you need to look like business, right? You need to, because you're an outsider in that organization. You're not baked into their culture yet. So they need to have a certain respect for you when you walk in the place. So that's kind of one aspect of it. The second aspect of looking the part is coming in the place organized. So whenever you go and sit down with your client, it either needs to be on your iPad, you need to have your printed copies ready, but you need to be ready. You need to have planned in your day time to think about what your client needs and put yourself in position to walk into there and maximize their time. Again, you're an outsider. You're not baked into their organization and baked into their culture. You need to show them that you will not waste their time. You need to show them that you are prepared, that you are organized, and that you don't have so much work on your plate that you can't take on additional work. I'll tell you, I've had some looks from clients when I hadn't been able to call them back on time, or I hadn't been able to answer their text messages in a timely fashion. They don't know the other projects that I have going on, and they don't care. What they care about is, does Tyra have the capacity to deliver my results? That's what they care about. And that's what they should care about, right? And so it's on you to manage yourself and manage your time accordingly. Just because you're a consultant and you're not up under their thumb as a boss doesn't mean that you should not treat them with a high level of respect, like you have thought through and organized yourself to walk in there and be ready for them. And so definitely look the part. Monitor your facial expressions. You're going to sit down from clients sometimes and they're going to say stupid stuff. You're going to sit down from clients sometimes and the expert on their team will be there challenging you, right? As if you're not a part of everybody getting where they're trying to go in life. I always feel like that with my clients. I'm a part of everybody trying to get where they're trying to go. I'm a part of your team, even though I don't work here. And so you want them to feel like you're a team player. Sometimes you're going to have to overcome some objections from folks, but you got to monitor your facial expressions and make sure that you're not looking at them like, really? Don't combat any negative energy. When you're working with your client, you want to understand that you're there as a problem solver and that somebody may be looking you up and down or checking you out, but that's okay too, right? Think of it as them doing their due diligence. So always maintain a sense of, I know who I am. I know what it is that I came to do. I look the part of a professional. I've had to overcome some really frustrating moments with clients. Sometimes I fuss a little bit and I'm letting them know, hey, we hitting a boundary right here. But for the most part, I'm never going to get ugly with a client. I remember one time, one of my first contracts, really, I was short and thin back then. And so I walk in, I have my slacks on with my little Banks Consultant embroidered shirt. And I was like, I'm about business. And I remember the gentleman who was presenting me to this bigger board of people to say, hi, this is the consultant we've hired. The executive director looked at me and laughed. He said, this girl is as big as my youngest daughter. Who is this? In my face, y'all. I would have lost that agreement had I fussed and went off and been like, who you think you're talking to? I'm a grown woman. Nope. I zipped all of that up. I was like, big things come in small packages. I wowed them. I did data for them 2 times after that. Because at the time I used to do, when I still do, data analytics for huge statewide campaigns like elections and propositions and things that need to go to large swaths of people. And guess what? They hired me, continued to use me after that. And so don't ever let your emotions get the best of you. That kind of brings me into number 5. That's the last tip. Stop being so emotional. I learned this when I finally really got a handle on it. 2 main things happened in my life. One, I kept seeing people get awards for things that I was really good at. I was out in the community doing the work, and other people were getting credit and awards for it. And that would just burn my grits in a way because I knew how much I was investing. And when I tell you y'all investing, I'm talking about not just time, not just going out to conferences and reading books so that I could be a better consultant and a better person in my community. Because a lot of things I was doing in my community, it was to give away. It wasn't even to make a bunch of money off of. So I had a frustration in that area because I'm doing it out of the right heart. And the recognition would have given me leverage to go after grant dollars from my community or to partner with big organizations because of my visibility. And all of those were things I could be bringing back to my people, back to my community. Louisiana, I'm in Louisiana, so, talk about we are in the struggle in our community. We need all the resources we can get. So I was sad about being looked over. But the second thing that I was sad about was that sometimes it's almost like people would be playing with me, almost not giving me the credit that I was due when I would work on projects. Now, a lot of it was my fault because I wasn't always putting my name on projects that I supported and things that were using my strategy that came out of my brain. But I wasn't getting the credit for it. And so I could understand why people would say, oh, that's just Tyra. And they would kind of treat me in such a plain demeanor because they didn't realize how powerful I was in terms of in here, how much I brought to the table, how much I was invested in making my community a better place and using my skills to bring that to the table. So I had to get over almost people playing with my name. I had to get over that, right? And realize that there was a bigger picture, that there was a larger scope of work that God had for me. The second thing that happened, there was a gentleman in media who started to talk bad about me. He called me a sellout. He's basically, said that he was watching me, that I wasn't really on the side of my people. And I realized that those accusations, they were threatening my credibility, right? I, ended up having people look into me and investigate and make sure that I was who I said I was. And I had to control my emotions in that moment because I could have flew off the handle, went on a social media rant. I could have made myself look unprofessional. I could have gone off. I end up winning the war on that one out of patience and quietness and stillness. And so I want to encourage you to think about the fact that there are people out here in the world who will manipulate your emotions. There are people out here in the world who, once they see your pattern, if you are easily the one that they can amp up, if they can just put a battery in your back, if they can say anything about Sister Sally or Sister Sue and you believe it, and they can wind you up like a wind-up doll and watch you go and lose your rabbit, they will pimp that. Okay? And so if you are going to be out here in the public sphere, consulting, working on different projects with different people, you got to be ready for the wolves. And that's going to mean putting on your poker face. That's going to mean grinning at times when you want to cuss. That's going to mean sitting back and folding your hands instead of spitting on people and pushing them down. And I mean that very literally, right? Like there are going to be times where you're going to be 38 hot, but you have to control your emotions and watch the entire landscape. Don't be easy to clock because there are people who are going to want to stir you up. They're going to be people who want to take you out of that expert role and make you common. And when you're walking it as an expert and you're walking this road as a consultant, when you're putting yourself out for work and for projects, your name is critical. Your name is what you have. And so move in silence as long as you can. You don't have to tell everybody what you're working on and what you're building. Don't be afraid to go and do speaking engagements, to table at industry events. Don't feel like you have to wait until you consult for Coca-Cola before you put yourself out there. You might never get noticed by Coca-Cola until you do.